Hey friend, I'm Ben Fetters with Sovereign SP, and in this video we're going to be adding a saving and a loading spinner to our app, as well as going over the notify function. The notify function will allow us to add success messages and failure notifications, as well as a couple other types of notifications. It's a pretty cool little formula. But just before we get started, remember, if you need help building an application or you would like us to build it for you, we'd love to help. Check out our Power Apps Champion program in the link in the description down below. Okay, let's get started. First off, just to show you an example of what we're going to be doing, I have a simple little document approval app that I've built here. And if I go ahead and click play, I'll go over to our document approvals. And we're going to click on new document approval. So what we want to do here, really the concept I'm trying to accomplish here with this saving spinner, is once the user fills out this form, I want them to, either when they save the form or when they submit it, once they filled out the right fields, I want to have a saving spinner come up that allows them to just wait for things to save, let the Power App do what it needs to do, and then when it's done, it says successfully saved. This helps give the user a good feeling that their data is actually stored somewhere, and if they come back to this, they know it's still going to be there. So I'm not going to add too much here to our form. I'm just going to click save, and you can see our nice little saving notification or saving spinner there, and then our green successfully saved message right at the top if you saw that. All right, so let's do this exact same thing. I'll exit out of our little play mode here. And I'm just going to go over here and add a blank screen just to get started. It's nice to start from scratch. The next thing I'm going to do is to add this loading spinner. It used to be a lot harder to do this, but they've made it a little easier now, and I love it. If you come up here to the Insert tab, or if you click on this plus button right here, you'll be able to find it as well. If you come over here, I don't know why I always like this Insert tab more than over here, but anyways, if you come over here to display, there it goes. We'll click on spinner, and you can see we're already seeing kind of what we saw on the other screen, right? So we got this loading icon, and if you just want that, I think that can tell the user that, hey, something's happening, right? So that is something that you can do. I can resize this and move it around here. Just to cover the properties real quick of what this is able to do, the first thing I'm able to do is add a label, and I could just say saving, maybe add a few dots here. And if I click away, you can now see it says saving. You can of course make it visible or not visible, which we'll be coming back to that in just a second. The label position, so I like the after, but if you want to put the label to be before the saving, then loading spinner, so you can do above or below, things like that. I like the one after. You can change the spinner size. I wouldn't necessarily say that's huge, but it's a little bit bigger. Let's go into how we can make it appear when you're saving something, and then once something is saved, go away. And once I explain this kind of concept, you'll be able to apply it to if data is needing to be loaded in the app. And I'll explain that after we do the saving part. So let me zoom out here a little bit. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a button right here. And we're going to go to the text. And hit save. I've been around with Power Apps for a while. I like the new modern controls. Some people don't. Let me know if you like the old buttons or the new buttons. I think the new buttons are awesome. Okay, so here we go. We have a save button here, and basically what we want to do is when we click this, we want the saving icon to appear, and once we're done saving data, make it go away. Okay, so I'm going to go click on advanced. And then in my onSelect property, I'm going to just select this text right here, and it pulls up my onSelect property over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is add saving some data. So I'm going to use the patch function, And I have a list here, I believe it's called document approvals. And I'm just going to create a new record and just do defaults document approvals. And by the way, if you haven't used the patch function saves data. If you're wanting to learn how to use it, check out my video on the patch function. All right. Now we're going to add, keep this simple, just a title field, and we'll say saving spinner. Okay, we'll close this out. So here is where I'm saving my data, right? Just this little line right here. So what I want to have happen again is once I start saving the data, I want the saving spinner to come up, and then once the app is done saving any data, then I want it to go away. So to do that, I like to think of it as I'm kind of sandwiching the save portion of my app in the middle, and then at the beginning is where I say, hey, turn on the saving spinner, make it visible, and then here's the meat of our sandwiches where I'm saving the data, and then at the end or the bottom I am telling the loading spinner to, okay, now that you've saved everything, go hide again. So what I can do is I can come over here and do an update context function. And again, if you haven't seen my video, I have a video on the variables in Power Apps applications. So check that out if you're interested. All right, and now I'm just going to say local because this is a local variable. And we're just going to say show saving spinner. And we're going to set it to true. So we'll end that variable. All right, come over here. And the end of our sandwich, we'll come down here and say update context, and save thing, I'll just hit tab, but except for this time we're going to say false. So again, what that does is the Power Apps, of course, runs from top to bottom. So first it's going to run this. We're going to use this variable to point to the visible property of our spinner control. And this variable is going to say, hey, I want you to turn the visible property of the spinner control on. And then we're going to save our data. Once this is saved, Power Apps will then run this, and it'll turn that visible property of our spinner control to false. So if that didn't make sense yet, it will in just a sec. Okay, so now that I've got this done, I'm going to go ahead and copy this name of our variable right here. We'll come up here. And I'm going to click on our spinner right here. And we're going to say, go to our visible property, and instead of just true, right? So this visible property is looking for either true or false. If it's true, it's on, you can see it. If it's false, then it's off, can't see it, it's not visible. So I'm just going to set it to the name of our variable. And right now, by default, the variable is false, or really it's technically blank. You can kind of see right here. And so what I'm going to do now is just hit play. And let's just imagine I'm filling out this amazing, awesome form. Then I'm going to come up here and click on save. See saving for a second, goes away, boom, awesome. So now if we check our data source here, and after a lot of scrolling, here is our saving spinner item. Awesome. Okay. But we kind of need one last little thing. We just want to show the user, hey, yes, it was saved. Even though it's already kind of implied, right? But we would like to give that last little verification of, hey, your data actually was saved. So we're going to come back to our button here. And you could probably put this either right here, or you could put it before this. I think it's about the same. Either way, this will happen pretty fast, right? So I'll just put it at the end here, and we're going to use the notify function. So I'll say notify. And, well, first let's put a little semicolon here to add another function. Okay, so we'll say notify, and the first thing I'm going to do is say the message that I want to say. So I'm going to say successfully saved. And then I'm going to say notification type. Now there's 4 different types. Really it just changes the color of the notification. So there's an error notification, it's red. Information is gray. Success is green. Warning is yellow, I believe. I've actually never used that one. So the first one, or third one, is success. We're going to use that one. And we have one last parameter, which we don't have to add. If you leave this alone, just end it right here, the notification will just stay up there until you click X. I don't like that. I like it to just go away. So I'm going to add a comma, and this is where we have the timeout parameter, and it says number of milliseconds. So if we want the notification successfully saved to show up for a few seconds, we can do that here. So I'll just say 3 seconds, so 3, and add my zeros, say 3000 milliseconds is 3 seconds. And then this right here. And now we'll go back to our save button. I'll hit play, click on save, saving, and we see successfully saved. And then after 3 seconds, it goes away. So pretty cool. The last thing we want to do is we actually want to trust that the data was saved, right? But technically something could happen. And so what we want to do here is we just want to add a little check to say, hey, was this really saved successfully? Did this patch function actually work, or was there perhaps an error that happened? And so what we can do is right before this notification right here, we can add a little if statement. So I'll say if, actually let's put it right in front of here. Okay, so I'll say if, and now I'm going to use the errors function. So the errors function essentially checks to see if there's any errors somewhere. It says, hey, here's all the errors that have come up. And all you need to put in it is just the name of the data source. So document approvals. I'll go like this. And now essentially I've got a table of errors right here, if there are any in there. And what I really need to do is check if there's anything in there. So I'm going to use the isEmpty function. And I will just put this whole thing inside of that. So now what I'm saying is, hey, if the errors for the document approval list, the list I'm trying to save to, if that is empty, go ahead and do a successfully saved notification. Awesome. If it's not empty, then an error occurred, and I can say notify and say, actually here, instead of saying, I could say an error occurred, but if I actually want to say the error message of what happened, I can actually get the last error message that occurred in this table of errors right here. So what I'm going to do is use the last function and do the errors again, and the name of our data source, so the document approvals. And I'll close this out. So now right here, I'm just getting the last error that occurred in the document approvals, which is really the latest one. And then I'll hit dot and message. Notice I can get a few other things here, so I can get the column, the record. I like to just say the message though, that'll be good enough. So now I have an error message that will pop up if an error occurs. And then I want the notification type to be error, so I'll just select that. I'll end the notify function, and I'll end our if statement. So I won't try to get the error message to break. You can play around with that if you want. But one more time, we'll just do this real quick. Say I fill out my form, I come up here to click save, savings, and successfully saved. And there you have it. My last little tips with this is I like to make sure that the actual loading spinner here is covering the entire form, or essentially covering everything that is not, that you don't want the user to be clicking on while it's saving, right? So you don't want them to click the save button and then click a back button to go somewhere else while the app is saving. You kind of want the app to just do what it needs to do and then let the user click back or go wherever they need to go after that. So that's one bit of advice. Something you can do, let's say you have another button right here. So let's say we have a back button, for example. This is a little advanced, but let's say we want to do this. And what I can do here is I can actually set this display mode, and I can say, hey, if the local show saving spinner, spinner, if this is true, right, I could say equals true, or because this variable is actually a true or false variable, I can just take this part out. And now my if function is saying if this variable is true, so if the loading spinner is visible, it means the app's trying to save something, I can say comma and say display mode dot disabled. So if the loading spinner is visible, this button is now disabled. The user can't click on it. And if it isn't visible, I'm going to say display mode dot edit. I'll close my if function. Now, really for the last time, come up here, click save. Now, well, happened really fast, but it did go, it was disabled there for a second. And then once it's saved, it comes right back to being editable. So that's just a little extra trick to make things a little more locked down while you're trying to save things. Or again, if you're trying to load data, if your app needs to go and grab a bunch of data and maybe manipulate it a little bit, you could do the same idea, right? So instead of using the patch function, this is where you're going to collect data, you're grabbing data, you're doing stuff with the data. If it takes a little while, then you can add a little loading spinner to say, hey, the app's doing something, it's getting data. Once it's done, that loading spinner goes away and then your data's there. I'd put this type of thing where you're grabbing data and wanting to show a loading spinner perhaps on the visible property of your screen. If you click on the screen and go here to the on-visible property, you could put it there, or just wherever you're getting the data, right? So if you need to click a button that goes and grabs data from somewhere and it takes a little bit of time, then you could put it there. And that is it. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comments section. I really try to answer all your questions and comments. And I'm actually doing a Ask Ben Anything once a month, so your question might just get featured in that video. If you'd like to reach out to me, I'll put my email in the description down in the video below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.